Hi, friends. Mary Preston here. We are in the middle of reviewing the Catholic Bible for Children. And today we're going to talk about one of our major players that you may have heard about before, Abraham. And we are reading the series, FYI, if you're here just to hear Bible stories. I grew up Catholic and deconverted a very long time ago. So I'm not reading this in a way that if you are super religious, you would probably enjoy. Just a heads up. Going over how children's stories in religious groups tend to set us up from a very young age to participate in many manipulative and abusive relationships. They really groom us to gaslight ourselves, to be honest, to believe that we are always wrong, to have very low self-esteem, and to obey authority figures, whatever that means, right? Could be God, the church, our husbands, our parents. So authority figures are right, and we need to apologize and make it right. Also, we spend our entire lives trying to get closer to God, even though He makes it hella hard. So we've talked about everything up to the Tower of Babel. We've already had Cain and Abel. We've had Noah's Ark. We've gotten kicked out of the beautiful garden, Adam and Eve, and now we are Noah's three sons have been arrogant and proud, and where we all used to get along with each other after we all got killed because God flooded the earth, whatever. But then we all got together and we were all getting along so good. We were going to build a big tower together and we all could speak the same language, and God was like, nope, you're not. I'm going to make sure you can't understand each other. Ha ha ha. Now you can't build this big, awesome, sweet tower that you were going to build together. And now you don't know how to work with each other. So no more big projects, and go back to your corners of the earth. Stop working together. Not cool. So today we're going to be talking about Abraham. And I'll just go ahead and read this story to you. There's a lot of, we'll just read Abraham today. We're going to talk about Joseph soon. There's Abraham. Look at this. We've got all kinds of things. Oh, look at that. Abraham with a knife over his son. We'll talk about that in a second. That's really exciting. I'll show you those pictures again when we're done with the story, so they make a little more sense. And if you're just listening, I don't really know how to describe them to you. So maybe don't buy this book either. Just use your imagination. Okay, let's read about Abraham. So one of Noah's descendants, Abraham, went to live with another people in the land of Ur. It's spelled capital U, lowercase r. I don't know how to say that. I apologize, but I'm also not going to look it up. One day, Abraham heard a voice call him from the heavens. He understood that it was God's voice. And he fell down on his knees. The Lord said to him, "Leave the land where you are now living, leave your home and that of your relations, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make your family into a great nation, and it will be blessed by all." That's a nice promise. It sounds great. So Abraham took his family and the families of some of his friends, and after a long journey, they reached the land of Canaan. The Lord appeared to him and said, "I am going to give your descendants this land." Abraham bowed down until his forehead touched the ground, and he built an altar there to honor God. Very nice, very nice. Abraham and his wife Sarah were both very old. But one day God appeared to them and said, "Abraham, I will bless you with the birth of a son. He will be the head of nations. Kings will be born from him." Abraham muttered, "I am 100 years old. Lord, and my wife is 90 years old. How could I still have a son?" Still, the Lord had made his decision. In spite of how old they were, Abraham and Sarah had a son, who they named Isaac. He grew up to be strong and handsome. Handsome. Why did they add that? I don't think that's in the Bible. Isaac was the joy of his parents, and they saw him as the hope of his people and the renewal of their youth. God wanted to put Abraham's faith to the test because, that's what God does. So one night he appeared to him and said, "Abraham, Abraham, take Isaac and go with him up a mountain. When you arrive there, kill him, sacrificing him to me." And now we've learned in previous stories that God's super into like sacrifices of live animals, especially our choicest ones. Well, Abraham answered, "I will obey you, my Lord." even though he had to choke down his terrible grief. Early the next morning, he woke up little Isaac and two of his servants, traveled with them toward the mountain, carrying the wood they needed for the sacrifice on their two donkeys. On the third day, they arrived at their destination. Abraham, brokenhearted, obeyed God's command, and he muttered to his servants, "Stay here. I and my son will go up the mountain and offer our sacrifice." He tied the wood onto his son's back, and he said to him, "You take the wood, my son, and I will carry the fire and the knife." As they were walking along, Isaac said, "Father, we have the wood, the fire, and the knife, but where is the lamb that we are going to sacrifice?" Abraham answered him, "The Lord will provide the animal for our sacrifice." When they arrived at the spot, Abraham arranged the wood and some stones. He then ordered his son to lie down upon it. Isaac, confused, obeyed him. His father tied him up and was ready to kill him, offering up his blood and his life to God. Just then, there was a voice from the heavens that said, "Do not harm your son, Abraham. Now I know that you love me so much that you would even sacrifice your only son to me. Go back home and you will be blessed." Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a bush. Abraham went over and took the ram and offered it up as a sacrifice in place of his son. Now, I have had a lot of people talk to me about this story. Like, Abraham is such a great person because he loves God so much. He would offer his only son, who he has wanted for so long, up for sacrifice. That he is somebody to look up to because he tied his son onto a rock so that he could, the way that we sacrifice, right? We slit the throat and we let it bleed out. And then the wood and the fire are to burn the sacrifice, right? So God gets that good whiff of charred meat, blood smoke, right? That he's super into. Okay, so, but we take a second and we step back, which really we should, because one, Cain was tormented forever for generations, and probably his descendants didn't make it onto the ark. I highly doubt that. In fact, it sounds like Cain's descendants were like the cause of all the evil, that God was like, "I'm done with humans," right? But now we've got this story where God's like, "You know what? I would really like for Abraham to prove how much." Why do we have to prove? This is okay. Put a pin in that. I really want Abraham to prove how much he loves me. And I'm going to tell him to do the thing that I punished somebody for generations for, which is murder, of like clearly intentional. At least Cain was just pissed off and killed Abel. Like, Abraham was like, "Okay, for 3 to 4 days, I'm thinking ahead about how I'm going to take my son up to the sacrificial altar and murder him so that I can prove to God that I am super obedient." That's messed up, right? We can all agree. I really hope so. I mean, if you're watching this and you don't agree, like, comment below. Would really love to hear why you think that that's fine. So this other piece that we're putting a pin in, right, is the fact that, and this goes back to the whole reason for this series, is how God is constantly asking humans to prove their obedience, prove their love. Is God not omniscient? Could he not just be like, "I know what Abraham's thoughts are because I'm in his brain and his mind and his thoughts"? No, he has to test him by telling him that he's got to murder his kid to prove his love. And Abraham passes the test. We right, like the undercurrent of the story is that Abraham passes this test, that he was not supposed to say, "Wow, God, that's kind of messed up." That's the son that you gave me after all these years that we begged for it. And you were like, I'm finally going to give you a son. And now you're telling me that I'm supposed to murder him. And murder is like super bad as far as we know from previous stories, right? I'm assuming Abraham knows murder is bad. Um, so Abraham did the right thing is what we're supposed to get this out of the story. And like, and then there's this, oh, this like super sweet moment at the end, right? You're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, God loves Abraham so much because of course he takes Isaac off the rock, off the sacrifice rock, and there's a ram just perfectly ready to be sacrificed. And now God can get that good whiff of charred meat and blood from this ram instead of Isaac. Like it's just like if you're still with me, is this not a super bizarre story? It really is. And people use this story all the time, like to talk about like they will do anything to prove God's love, as if proving God's love is a thing. And like this is one of those base layers that I wish people would question. If your God's so good, you can have whatever beliefs you want about God, spirit, universe, right? But if you're believing there's a creator who created in his own image and loves us so much, why do we have to continuously prove to him things that he already knows? Why is he constantly setting us up? Why is he setting Abraham, his favorite human, even though, by the way, we skipped some stories where Abraham like gives his wife to tribes as they're traveling so that Abraham doesn't get killed. We skipped a lot of really important stuff about Abraham, but for some reason, still, Abraham is a favorite. And his favorite, he's like, hey, go kill your one kid, even though you're 100 and you've waited this long for this kid. What? 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 Okay. Join me next time. We're going to talk about next. We're chatting about Jacob and Esau. Join me next week. This is a good one too.